Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Does intermittent fasting have any health advantages beyond it being a cutting tool? The answer is clearly no. Now, why do I say that? Am I against the idea of studying it? No. If you guys recall, many years ago, what was it, 6, 7, 8 years ago on YouTube, I made a couple of videos discussing this, and I actually said there's research out there looking into different health benefits. It looks potentially promising, and we should research this, right? Because if it turns out something like intermittent fasting could help with different things like insulin sensitivity or anything like that, that we should investigate it, and we should study it, and we should know about it, okay? Because if it's an easy tool to use for various health benefits, then we should study that. And it looked potentially promising. I was optimistic about it. Okay? So that's the approach I took. Over the years, I have remained optimistic and look at the research. What's the research when you don't look at it biased and you step back because you're not making any money off intermittent fasting? You have no vested interest in the game other than finding the truth, which is my stance on it. Okay, I have no financial interest one way or the other. If it turns out to be a useful tool for health benefits, I want to know about it for my own personal benefit, all right, and for yours, but mainly for myself. And if it doesn't, then we need to realize it's a waste of time. Largely, the data that has looked at it repeatedly has found any and all health benefits that have come from intermittent fasting seem to come from the ability to create a calorie deficit and fat loss. Like, the fat loss benefits have turned out to be the only thing we can determine. Like, it's all been correlated. It's not like if you lose fat with it that there seem to be any health benefits versus full day of eating with the same calories. Offers no metabolic benefits, and there's been some limited data to suggest some possible health negatives. There could be some issues with insulin sensitivity, depending upon the structure of your diet and training and everything else with it. And I've seen some researchers kind of point that out who also keep a promising approach to it. There might be some problems with it. It may put you at a slight disadvantage, but if that's offset by your personal ability to control calories, then the latter will outweigh the former, right? And that's the idea. So that's what it comes down to. The caloric restriction element of it is the only benefit. It actually has some problems. It definitely has problems for muscle growth and retention outside of that. And it's pretty straightforward. And I'm not saying it as being a hater. I'm saying it as someone who has used intermittent fasting in the past, who has always remained open-minded to the research. It hasn't turned out to be very promising. But I don't have a financial vested interest in it. So that's why I'm able to say that. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, how many times a week would you suggest a novice lifter to do weak point training for them to be stronger with the big lifts? Well, if you're a novice lifter, you don't have weak points. Your whole body's weak. Okay? Your entire body is weak. This is a point that we always make over and over and over and over. This is why we have basic programs for the novice lifter. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you couldn't throw some extra work in for something like triceps or hamstrings. Probably be a good idea. Muscles you can't see in the mirror would be wise for the novice to possibly throw some stuff in for, but realistically, you don't have weak links. If you squat 185 pounds and you're not a small woman, your lower body is a weak link. Okay? See where we're going with this? If you only bench 135 for a couple reps and you're not a female, your upper body is a weak link. So if you hit both of those, then your entire body is a weak link. You need to train your entire body. You don't have weak links that you need to worry about at that point. You are weak. So let's come over to the point. What do you mean how many times a week? Let's assume that you have a weak link that comes up to some extent. For example, let's say that you're not a novice and your triceps are a weak link. Why do you change the frequency? I mean, you could throw in a bunch of band work every day or whatever for restoration and connective tissue and all that, but that's not the same thing, is it? If we're running an upper-lower split and your hamstrings or your triceps are a weak link and we're on a 4-day upper-lower, how often do you train your triceps or your hamstrings? Twice a week. You see where we're going with this? What determines muscle growth? Well, generally weekly volume. So maybe you should add some more sets for your weak link. Hey, if your hamstrings are a weak link, you should probably on both of your lower body days, because if you're not a rank novice anymore, this is what we're doing, right? We're running 4-day upper lower. And people say, well, that's not what I do. Well, nobody asked you. That's not what I coach or teach. So I don't know why you need to bring that up. People are asking me as a coach. So if your hamstrings are a weak link, you should probably do glute ham raises or some hamstring curls or both on both of your lower body days. See how easy that is? If it's an upper body weak link, you should train it on your upper body 2 days. You could maybe address some of these weak links during restoration work on off days also, but that's not the same thing as training them. Okay, because we're not worried about hitting serious weights or specific movements. We're just doing lighter work for connective tissue and blood flow and maybe a little bit of growth. It's not the same thing. So twice a week, just like everything else. It's called training. Right? Weak link training is part of training. We all do it. It's a normal part of your regular programming. All right, next question and last question of the week. What are your recommendations on bands? What bands, poundages to buy, lengths of bands, etc.? By the amount of bands that you need. That's like asking me how many 45-pound plates should I buy? Well, I don't know. How much are you planning on deadlifting? The answer is identical. People say, what? What do you mean? Okay, the answer is identical. How much do you plan on deadlifting? That's going to be the heaviest thing you're going to do, therefore it should probably determine what weights you have. What are standard waves on conjugate for speed work? 25% of your max. If you plan on having a 500-pound deadlift max, you should have 125 pounds of band tension, of combined tension. Or probably more because you can fine tune. Right, you're going to need a couple different bands, some mini bands, other stuff. Okay, speed work, for the base speed work, not when we get to the advanced stuff like I do with 33%, usually 25% of your max. Okay, what if you're going to do advanced speed work and you plan on squatting and deadlifting 600 pounds? Well, 33% of this 200 pounds, you're going to need enough bands to have 200 pounds of band tension. What lengths? Buy the long bands. Why don't buy the little shorty bands unless you have a specific need for them, and they're going to be less useful overall than the longer bands, which I don't know. They're either 41 or 51 inches. I forget. You'll have to check Rogue's website. What brands? There's only 2 companies that make good bands: Rogue and Elite FTS. Those are basically your choices. Everything else is going to be garbage. It's going to snap. It's going to get you hurt. It's going to hit you in the eyeball. People have lost eyes, by the way, from cheap bands. Those are your options. So here's your other problem. It might be different by the time this video comes out, because it won't be up for a couple of weeks according to me looking at the date on it. Everybody's out of stock. You can't buy bands anyways. Okay, if you didn't buy them months ago, you probably are not getting bands for a little while. So when they come back up, Rogue, Elite, FTS, those are your choices. Now, I don't know the exact settings for Elite FTS because all my bands are Rogue. So I can't help you there, but I know they're pretty similar quality and style. Okay? You're going to need an assortment, but at the bare minimum, you're going to need at least 25% of your deadlift max, or the deadlift max you want to get to, plus at least some other smaller mini bands for fine tuning. That's what you're going to have to have. Just like saying, hey, how many weight plates should I buy? I would be like, well, what max deadlift are you trying to get to? You should have enough plates to do that. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.